and welcome to the MHR Podcast. I'm Alice.
And I'm Andy.
And for the past month, we've been taking a look at the world of work and our predictions for 2024. We've taken a look at HR, payroll, finance, and this week we're going to take a look at learning.
Okay. So we've discovered over the last month that there are some universal themes that affect businesses across departments. So we've been looking at issues such as retention, we've looked at recognition, we've looked at burnout, we've looked at very people-heavy problems, but we've looked at technology problems as well, such as how can we automate processes, how can we empower our staff with software, how can we enable development, right?
Indeed,
of all of these things. And it seems like the more we talk about it, the more we recognise that these aren't just specific to certain departments, these aren't department-specific issues, these are business-wide issues. So I'm very interested to learn today, looking at our research and what our experts say about learning, how they answer the questions to these problems that keep coming up.
Yeah, when you say, obviously, it's a business-wide challenges, it's not just like, say, specific departments, but also you're looking at a variety, aren't you, as well? So taking a look at learning then, 62% would consider leaving their current job due to insufficient learning opportunities.
Ah, there you go, look.
So
we talked about learning and development being an issue.
Yep.
Now we're talking about learning. They're saying everyone's going to leave if you don't do it. So learning and development continues to be an issue across the department. You need to enable staff with better learning opportunities, otherwise you're going to lose them.
Yeah,
That's what stats are saying.
Exactly, and that common theme that keeps coming up, I guess, is retention. So it kind of alludes to, right, all these things we talk about within HR, finance, payroll, now learning. There's that common theme of retention. So it brings that idea of, right, how can we be tackling it? We've begun the year.
Yeah.
We're kind of forecasting this is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
How can we tackle it? But 62% would consider leaving their job. So it's quite a high stat, isn't it, really?
So we go on to talk about it with our research, don't we? And I think the first thing that we try to recognise at MHR, talking to our industry experts, is that in order for you, and again, it's much like with payroll, the world of work is changing. It always will do.
It's
always going to move forward. And as a part of that, payroll has changed. We're talking about stuff like real-time payroll, which more accurately reflects the way in which people work now. Learning is the same. Learning has changed forever. That's kind of the strapline of one of the chapters to our World of Work guide, right? And as we move into 2024, learning development departments will continue to take more flexible forms. They will have to, because the way people work has changed. So the way that you enable them, the way that you help them learn has to reflect that. So gone are the days where traditional face-to-face instruction is led in person solely, and it was seen as the default. E-learning has really truly established itself, I think, and I think we're seeing it a lot more in the world of work. Even more kinds of learning are being offered to employees now than ever before. So if you've got a shift of people around different companies from different cultures or different experiences, and you're not offering that broad scope, or you're not aware of it, you're going to soon get yourself lost behind, and you'll get your staff lost behind as well.
Definitely, it's really limiting, isn't it? And we've got a stat here as well that 80% of the workforce don't sit behind a desk anymore. So if they're not physically sat at their desk or in the office, it really broadens about how flexible can you make your learning so that it can be accessed by all employees at all levels.
So those of you who are familiar with the MHR podcast, you may be aware that we have some repeating guests come in from MHR. And one of them is the fantastic Julia Roberts, who is our internal trainer here at MHR.
Indeed.
And she's given a quote into this research in regards to how learning is affecting businesses. And she says that soft skills don't change. People are people. Human behaviour is human behaviour. Maybe just the methods we use to bring those behaviours to the fore need to change.
And it's true, isn't it? I think everyone has a way that they like to learn.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I guess you can say, we supply our employees with learnings, we supply them with a program, but actually I think it needs to be flipped around and say to employees, how is it you want to learn? Because like Julia says here, human behaviour is human behaviour.
Yeah.
We're all different. And that's the best thing about us.
We've got to recognise those differences in our workforce, because they're the things that unlock change. They're the things that unlock growth,
true.
right? Because 73% of young people are anxious about their futures because of a cost of living crisis. We've talked about that with payroll in the finance episode already, right?
Yeah.
So they feel like they've not had the same opportunity to develop their careers because businesses have been tighter, right? So lowering the career expectations as a result means that people feel like they're stagnating, or they feel like they're stuck in a workplace because they're not getting that development. If you're not getting that development, as we've just seen, you're going to leave, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of untapped talent that's not being channeled, and also there's a lot of untapped potential that's not being accessed if you don't have the ability to help people learn in different ways in your organisation.
Yes. And I think as well, if you have the resource like a learning team in your business or trainers, use their expertise. They're the ones that are going to have the research. They're going to see where people are developing most, what's going to be kind of the topics to be speaking about this year and to be developing in. So use that resource. That's why they're there. So your learning doesn't have to just be supplied by platform or a document pack. Let's hope it's not pen on paper kind of learning in this day and age.
We're already talking about it, aren't we? And that's what our guide goes on to talk about. That's what our research suggests. It's about looking at learning as an experience rather than just a tick box exercise or an age-old platform that you've always used. What can you do to embrace a learning experience within your career at a place?
Yeah. So as our guide goes on to say, the learning experiences, LXP in short. So it's kind of looking at the offshoot or evolution of learning management systems. So obviously you might have heard the term LMS, which is the learning management system. So everyone's quite familiar with that. It gets the organisation at that baseline level of knowledge. What the LXP does in that experience is it gets the employees to self-direct their learning, and also it incorporates possibly AI into it as well. So on that point, you're probably looking at it's how kind of customer service has expanded into customer experience and how LXP kind of is that evolution and it's existing in businesses now. But on that forefront, it's going to become a lot more popular in 2024. And that's why our guide goes on to say it's going to be something that's really pushed, that employee autonomy in learning. I think it's going to be very kind of common over the next year.
So, and again, it's a different way of looking at learning, isn't it? It's not going, okay, you're on this path, we've got a learning management system, you can do this. It's like, no, actually, if we can get you to build your own path, use your own initiative to create your own career, and that's how we can. And we need a system that can be able to flex with that, flex with your needs, so we can help drive and empower you. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's where it's more crucial. It's more intuitive. It's more data led, and a platform, a learning experience platform, is able to identify skills gaps more readily, and also suggest development or opportunities where people can actually move within an organisation based on how their skills that they're on with their LXP program that align to opportunities in the business. It supports retention because you're able to grow in different ways.
Yes, definitely. And like we say, that is a big challenge for 2024 retention. So actually, if you're retaining your employees and whether they stay in their role and they develop, or actually they want to change a career, those employees have built kind of confidence within your business and your strategy, and they're there to support it. So you've got to be keeping them. They're the value added that you have. But something that's quite interesting as well with LXPs and LMSs, speaking of them, is you've got to consider the different industries. Obviously, we're a HR, payroll, finance and learning business. So we can speak very highly of digitalisation, but actually it's very adaptive to the industries such as hospitality and manufacturing. Because you've got to think those probably have high levels of turnover and they're probably quite seasonal. So at that point, the learning platforms can help quickly train up the staff so that they can be on the forefront where they need to be, and they can kind of be that mobile ready. And
you can often see in industries, say like manufacturing, transport logistics, or hospitality, and especially retail, you've got companies that might flex and decrease in size quite regularly, like seasonally. So as soon as you're in an organisation where actually your body count changes rapidly, or you have to switch or pivot your kind of actions, you're bringing in a lot of people that need to learn really fast. So the LXP is great also for just getting people up to that baseline, like you say, but it's also about going, well, how can we make sure we're always at a standard of our staff, and how can we actually, instead of us seeing our business as a very expensive turnover exercise, because seasonally we're just going to drop in people, how do we retain those people and help them come to the next level so they stay with the business and help the business grow? Because the longer someone's with you, the more experience they put in, the more your company's going to develop with them, right? Providing you're investing back into them.
Exactly.
And that kind of goes into the messages guide here, which is developed employees are empowered employees, right? So we need to make sure that the learning is in their hands so they can drive the business forward with themselves.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of alludes to a culture of learning.
Yeah.
And we've got a quote here: to create a real culture of learning, think people need to be free to learn when and what they want to learn first. So only then will they develop a real interest in it, and then it will impact their skills. So we speak about soft skills, hard skills, specialised skills. We spoke finance last week about the specialised skills that existed in that department. So it is developing that culture of learning and how best people do want to learn. I mean, Andy, how is it you like to learn?
I'm a really visual learner. So
are you?
yeah, so I think I do like, and I also think it's changed drastically since I've been working, right? So it used to be that I would start a job and I had to do all my mandatory courses, and sometimes I've had jobs where that was really where my learning ended, right?
Right.
And then I had to go for a culture where businesses would actually have to tell me or remind me of actually, no, the learning is in your hands. You should be recommending where we can go. But it was very much a go to a course in person. It was very much a go to a seminar, go to a conference, or do this course online and you can get a certificate. Whereas I think it's way more flexible than that. It's not seeing that learning has to be this very rigid qualification. It's that learning needs to be an experience where I can expose myself to more skills. But how do I quantify that? Or is learning just a goal setting exercise? I really like all forms. I like meeting in person because I'm very conversational, right? But sometimes if I need to just up my knowledge on compliance or or like a system or a process, I literally want short, snappy visual bites that I can interact with. That really helps me absorb information.
It's being memorable, isn't it? 'Cause it's fine taking a team out on a training day or, like I say, having those short snippets. If that's the best way you learn, that's what you're going to remember. And that's when you've learned something, isn't it, actually?
And the worst thing you can do is actually go, right, your new job, here's all that stuff you need to read. I'm like, well, I'm never going to absorb that. My focus isn't there. I'm not engaged with it.
No matter how much I highlight that sheet.
Yeah.
It's just not going to go in. It's true. But like I say, there has been a massive change in the way that people learn. And I think that is with the help of technology, isn't it? No, even in my university, from the first year to the fourth year, it changed drastically. Obviously, COVID did push that along a lot more. But like you say, I think learning's now a lot more accessible, and it's a lot more accepted across the whole of the business. It's not just for those specific roles where they have the qualifications. It's encouraged for everyone, no matter what your role is.
And I think opening up those platforms and making it more digital as an experience, it really helps an organisation understand the level of experience and skill they have. For example, as soon as you make a course that you can interact with digital, you can start tracking how much, not only how many people have watched it, but how much they've watched of it.
Right.
And where they've gone wrong, or because you can start using that data to go, actually, you're not engaging with this. You're not engaging with this learning, because actually part of a learning experience platform is that you're learning how to teach people to learn, right? You're getting data around how your staff are engaging, so you can improve that experience. Which is very hard to do in an in-person setting. Whilst they're there and engaging, that's very anecdotal data, whereas sometimes you need the whole, this many people, especially if you're a business that works, say, in manufacturing or in a legal sector or a business in a professional sector, is when people need actual qualifications or compliance testing, you need to know they've done it.
You do.
So if you're like, actually, we use training for your development, but also we use learning to make sure that you're up to the compliance standard this business needs. I need that data. Otherwise, I know my business is at risk if I can't prove it. So digitalization is really helpful in that sense. Yeah,
definitely. And there's one point that you kind of alluded to there, and that was the idea of the investment in learning. Obviously, there are mandatory learning that does need to take place, but probably companies do think, well, how much of return on investment are we getting if we're investing in learning? And I guess in some ways, in a short-term view, you're probably thinking, well, what is the return? But actually, if you think about long-term, if you're upskilling your employees, and that's kind of, I think, quite a key word for this year, isn't it? The upskill, especially in the economic crisis that we're in. But going back to the point, if you're upskilling your employees, there will be a return. You don't know how great that return is, but there will be a return that comes in sight. But again, you've got to think about that the costs will increase with learning. As you become more digitalised, as it becomes broader, the cost will increase. But actually, the more skills your employees come and the more confident, the more they'll want to retain their job in your business, and they'll want to see their careers develop with the company that they're in.
And I think, to end on that point, I think one thing we can all focus on is the reason we invest in learning, or the reason we should invest in learning and we should invest in people, is it can help future-proof your organisation, right?
That's true.
You don't spend a lot of money on people who are going to just pass through. The idea is that they can stick with an organisation and they can help it move forward, because not only do you have the right level of skill in the organisation, but you're exposing people to new ways of working that this business aren't currently operating in, and they can bring in, right?
True.
Say I go to a conference or I do a seminar on something that I'm upskilling in. The whole point is I come back to work and I go, I learned this, we don't do it. And I've learned there's an opportunity to do that. If we do this, we can add extra value X, Y, and Z, right? You can do that in all forms of learning. So the guide goes on actually as we talk about it, and kind of ends on the point in our learning section about upskilling for the future, which is that, skill set jobs have changed 25% since 2015, right? And by 2027, that number is expected to double, right? Okay. Shifting technologies mean that new skill sets are constantly in demand. Right? That means that skills gaps are plaguing organisations up and down the country. This is a universal problem. Technology is changing. We have an old and increasingly old workforce that are leaving. Experience is getting lost, and we have a younger generation that are still learning how these things work, and also need to get up to speed with new technologies, especially as a resident workforce are definitely aren't up to speed with new technologies. If you don't learn, you're going to get stuck behind your competitors, right? So finance teams are in particular suffering as a result of skills gaps,
right?
Because they often lack soft skills revolving around leadership and workload management. That is what our data has shown. So skills change at a pace faster than traditional learning and development approaches. Okay. So as a result, it's really important that learning and development departments collaborate closely with all of their employees and managers to understand what skills are currently needed and what will be needed in the future, because you've got to plan ahead for that. You don't want to be learning what skills are out now. You need to be learning what's coming so you can be ahead, right?
Yeah.
So this will be especially important in industries where AI, and we've talked about it a lot, could be quite disruptive. Right, by training people up with soft skills and leadership skills, you give employees the ability to supplement AI use without being overpowered by it. So it's learning how you can manage this rather than being led by it. So, and a quote I'll end off is, who better to talk about the latest skill than the employees that are demonstrating this day to day? Find the people in your company with the skills that you need more of. Talk to them about what they need.
Exactly.
That's the best way to support your learning journey.
It is. It's definitely true. So in summary, I guess the main things we've really talked about, and the biggest thing, is the changing landscape of learning. Yeah. Like I say, there's so many different methods, so many different resources. We spoke about the LMS, we spoke about LXP, the experience, but kind of the point that you ended on there is go and find what suits you. Yeah. You are the driver behind your learning and your capabilities and what you want to do next. So take that, empower yourself, go and find what suits you. But at the end of the day, it should be about empowering your employees, and that's for no matter what department, what role you have, that should be what the business is investing in.
And again, if you can invest or you have the option to digitalise this and make sure that you're using technology to capture this information, you're going to give yourself a better sight of where your gaps are. You can make better business planning decisions, and you can also make sure that you're retaining your staff by providing them with opportunities to align their skills that you've logged with opportunities that the business can offer them.
Exactly. I hope that you've enjoyed the podcast this week, learning about learning.
Yeah, I feel like we've learned a lot, if nothing else.
I think so. If you would like to check out the World of Work guide, it will be on our website, mhrglobal.com. And next week, we'll be taking a look into, we'll find out next week.
Yeah, tune in then.
I've been Alice.
I've been Andy.
We'll see you next week.